And this is Trekland HQ, and we are live. Hey, no filler. R.I.P. John Trimble, and an unboxing. Yes. Today on Trekland Tuesdays Live, number 348, coming to you here from the heart of Trekland through Portal 47 and Trekland Treks, right? Your customized away mission here in Southern California to an actual Star Trek location site. Just coming to you for some sanity, clarity, and the big picture, or a bigger picture in all of Star Trek today. Hey, everybody, how are you doing? Hope you're having a great Tuesday wherever you are in the globe, because one of the reasons I do Trekland Tuesdays Live this time of day is so that everybody around the world can join us, or a chunk of the country, of the Trek-speaking world can join us here. So if you are new to Trekland Tuesdays Live, thank you for finding us. Welcome, welcome. So glad you stumbled in. Let us know in the chat, because the chat's where our great TTLers community is. They are great. Give us a weather report. Tell us, most of all, how you got here, how you found your way here. And here is the program. I'm going to talk about one or maybe more topics today on the soapbox, and then take a micro break, and then I'll get back and I will get to the chat then, all right, in a little bit. So don't give up, don't surrender if you are chatting away and I'm not looking at it, because it will happen in a minute. Although your fellow chattees, the other TTLers, will be happy to take it up with you. What I'm going to do, though, is remind you that you're here live. So if you're on YouTube, you can, number one, do super chats and cross my palm with some silver. I will get to your questions first when we start doing questions. Love to do that. And I love actual questions. They don't even have to be on our topic today, all right? But just know that YouTube and Twitch even are seeing all the answers, all the chat. If you're only on Facebook, you're only seeing Facebooks. All right, just to know. So please, if you haven't already, like and subscribe us on YouTube. That's where the numbers are. Would love to have you there. And of course, if you are watching us later, not live, that's great. You can leave a comment below, because some of the ones the last 2 or 3 weeks have really taken off. I invite everybody to go back and look and see what people are saying about TTLs and even our second opinions. But if you are watching later right now, try to join us some Tuesday. It would be great to have you with us. So yes, gang o' mine, here we are. It's another Tuesday. Stuff is happening. Discovery is unrolling, and it seems like there's enough in the week. Unfortunately, not everything happens on Monday and Tuesday morning, and events happen during the week that that I don't get a chance to react to. So I wanted to say, take a moment, number one, to talk about the person we lost last Friday. And I did do a separate comment on this, but I wanted to have it enshrined in TTL too, talking about John Trimble, Joe Trimble's husband. Now, several things come to mind. Number one, I've always made it a point when I've been with them, and over the years, just meeting them at cons, saying hi, having a brief word, or being fellow guests. I think one of the coolest times was when we were all guests at a small convention in an old school, grew out of being a lit con, called Condor. So you can always tell the old school conventions, fan conventions, nonprofits, because the procedure was to always have con in your name and try to be clever. So Condor was the old school San Diego convention. It was probably never more than 500, 1,000 at most. And it wasn't meant to be big, huge, we had a guest or two from different genres. Wasn't trying to emulate Comic-Con. It wasn't even trying to emulate a Trek Vegas, because they were budget and they were fans and yada, yada. And in the 50th year, I was thrilled, because Janet and I were the guests along with the Goes, along with Dorothy and Denny, Dorothy Fontana, and her husband, Denny Skotek, and John and Bijo. And it was really cool, because I got to sit down and talk with them. I hadn't really talked to Dorothy that much up until then. I bits and pieces on the run, but to sit down and have long conversations and a couple of long interviews. But it was a chance to sit down and talk with Bijo and John. But what I always am very mindful to do is, yes, John and Bijo's initial huge claim to fame is that they wound up leading the mail campaign, the original Save Star Trek campaign. And if you go back, and we've got episodes from the Trek Files, I was so glad we got these on tape, digital tape, talking about that story. But of course, it's been out there, it's been written about for ages. The more the years go by, the more you can get into wrinkles of the story. And yes, eventually we know that Gene did put up some of the money for it himself, although he denied it to NBC at the time. Gene, call off the dogs. They're drowning us. I got nothing. Sorry, guys. Well, he at least initiated the tap. Once it was off and running, though, it was a beast of its own, right? We had them talking. And then they helped found Star Trek Enterprises, which was, if it flats, we'll sell it and mail it. Gene and Majel's original take to satisfy fan cravings, because as you've seen in our letters on the Trek Files, people were constantly writing, not just for photos, but they wanted phasers and they wanted tribbles and they wanted a console. I mean, it was just so new to people. That kind of thing on a mass scale, that sci-fi could be more than just your favorite book and everything on screen was just trash. And once a decade, you got something cool on screen. Forbidden Planet, Day the Earth Stood Still. And even if it was on the small screen, it was a one-off. Or in the case of Twilight Zone, it was anthology. So it's just so hard to imagine the hunger in the 60s for Star Trek. Just the way it's hard to imagine how the whole world stopped, dropped everything to go watch a NASA launch, a Mercury, Gemini, or Apollo launch. It's just a different world now, but you got to put yourself into that headspace and remember why things were new and how when something is new today, how it's, the GOAT all of a sudden. But that was the situation that first John and Bijo were swept up in and then led the campaign. And because of the notoriety from that, wound up helping Gene and Majel set up Star Trek Enterprises, which turned to Lincoln Enterprises, which then by Rod's generation became Roddenberry.com. And also the times when they weren't so close to Gene and when so much stuff that saved the show and sparked the fandom became so big that as the 70s wore on and a movie or some kind of a comeback was certain, all of a sudden Gene did okay, hold on, wait a minute. Franz Joseph, Schnabel, the Trimbles. I mean, so many folks who had a hand in that early 70s survival revival fandom, Gene started to put at arm's length because he had to make sure that nobody else had a stake in what was going to happen here the second time around. For one thing, he was not near starving, but he was scrambling. He was looking out for himself, and I get that. But eventually, the Trimbles were dethroned, at least as far as official Trek fandom. Now, they were always there because they'd been through too much, and too much was owed to them. And over the years, people don't realize that John and Bijo, and I know I'm lumping them together. I'm doing exactly what I said I didn't want to do. John and Bijo were actually in the SCA first. Before they found, about the same year they found Star Trek in the fall, they had just joined SCA, which is the Society for Creative Anachronism. It's the medieval reenactors, and sometimes you might see them, but I'm not talking about your generic Ren Fair performers. I'm talking about the role play. You're a member, you get a persona, you come up with a whole backstory for your character. It's a little bit like the most obsessed STO players, or in the old days, the most obsessed Starfleet International role players with a backstory and all of that. But this was the SCA. It was first before it hit sci-fi. And a lot of people lived their SCA life. They never stopped dressing medieval. They never stopped using their persona name. I knew people that I never knew their actual names because they just went by their SCA names. The whole country's divided up into, okay, you can look up the SCA on your own. The whole country of the U.S., maybe the world by now, but the U.S. is divided up into kingdoms. Oklahoma was Onsteora. You had shires. You had incipient shires, which would be like a shuttle becoming a ship chapter in Starfleet. Incipient shires became shires, and eventually maybe a kingdom would break off of it. Anyway, that was actually John and Bijo's first. And then later on, Bijo totally got into. They were always crafty, and Bijo got into to dyes and all that. But look, John was an Air Force veteran, Korean War Air Force veteran. And I want to say that because there's all that aspect to his life. But it was the time when everybody got drafted, and that's what he did. He was a North Dakota native, wound up being based and serving all over the place. But it was a Forey Ackerman party. And if you don't know Forrest J. Ackerman was like the fan's fan. You talk about a professional fan in the Acker Mansion, which I'm so mad. We were in LA long enough with a 2 or 3 year overlap. I did not get myself over to see his insane memorabilia stuffed house. But in the day when he gave his parties, that's how John, it was for fans, for pros, the LA crowd scene. And before the Star Trek boom, much less the Star Wars and everything else boom. And that is how John and B, famously, the family story is that they met under the piano at Forey Ackerman's Acker Mansion. That's where they met. But then we're married 64 years ago. So figure it in your years. 64 years married, 3 children, Katha, Laura, and Jen. Laura is the one who's been kind of the family spokesman and posted the obituary for her dad that had a lot of this information. Yes. In fact, John was on the board for the SCA twice, 2 different terms. I'm just scanning this. And that's when Star Trek came along, and they totally just did it as fans when they heard that it was on the bubble. And that's the first season bubble, when they had the committee, which was mainly out of the sci-fi writers looking out for having a decent sci-fi show on TV and having a market to sell to. It really wasn't as massive, and it was a rumored bubble. And of course, we had the second season. The main campaign that the Trimbles led, the Save Star Trek campaign that prompted the on-air announcement. Okay, basically it was the polite way of saying, stop your writing. It's back. It's back. That was second season going into third. And that was where it all started. Now, later on, they cycled back to SCA. Later on, they left LA, went to Texas for a while as they aged, looking for retirement places, came back, were close to the family. The last few years, John, by his veteran status, had been down the California Veterans Home, right on the Mexican border at Chula Vista. And that's where the hospice was. Just a couple of days before he passed, they had announced that he was going into hospice. And everybody would really appreciate letters. I just want to say, number one, I'm taking time today, even though the hullabaloo was on Friday when he passed, and a lot of people paid their respects. A lot of people gave wonderful thoughts and memories, and it's Tuesday because this is my normal platform day. Even though I wanted to jump in and say something on Friday on Instagram, especially, and carryover. But on the days when I would see John, it was great to see John and B. Joe together, because a lot of fans know that later on, B. Joe took up the gauntlet of the Concordance from Dorothy Jones Height, who actually started it, but she finished it and then kept it updated and then took it into the pro editions that it had later. And just ongoingly did so much, kept a newsletter up for years. And there's a danger, there's a time, they would never say this and they would never push this, but fandom out here looking in, and she had that cool name, tends to remember, I want to say, B. Joe more than John. And I want to make sure and remember that they were a couple, that they supported each other. They co-led the mail campaign, and they co-founded Star Trek Enterprises, the first Star Trek that kind of showed the way. And retail merch, even though it was Gene and Magel's company, that other people privately said, oh my God, this could be an industry. This could be a side hustle in today's terms. And then John, of course, was there all the way through, not quite as publicly and a little more quiet than B. Joe, although he could sound off when he wanted to. And so I'm going to urge everyone, if you want to know, they're both the guests, but toward the end of our second season, I want to say, I just was looking at this, episodes 22 and 24, especially 24 is John and B. Joe's second season, 2.224. John and B. Joe came over and we recorded them live and took pictures, talked about the mail campaign. We had the documents, of course, being Trek files. We had the flyers and all that. We also talked about the Star Trek Enterprises catalog. We also talked about when they got crossways with Gene, or when Gene got crossways with them, and they parted ways, and he had someone else running the company after that. And they went on. It was a shakeup. They had enjoyed so much access and so much closeness, but it never really went away. And of course, they went on to run conventions in LA, the EchoCon and film cons, and still had a working relationship with Gene. Wasn't a shutdown coldness at all. What's been great is, as the generations went by and fandom, in the aughts, I don't want to say forgot about the Trimbles, but things moved on. The Berman era blossomed. Boom. They weren't so tied to that. They were supposed to be in the beginning. There's some first season stories from Next Gen that are cute. And basically, I met Bijo for the first time when she came up to meet me after the TNG Companion had been published. And my first time in LA at the old Grand Slam, which used to be pre-Vegas, was the Creation's preeminent Star Trek convention, the big one, because it was in LA and everybody could come over there in Pasadena at the Civic. And I met her, and it was a thrill to meet Bijo. Oh my God. But at the same time, I had been around the block enough already to realize that I think she felt a little miffed and a little displaced. It was her role to do the concordances. And I remember something that the late, great Richard Arnold told me, and others had told me, that she was getting scripts and was supposed to be doing a concordance and just hadn't. And things moved on. And despite that, she came over to check me out and to say hello. And I say this, here I'm talking about Bijo. John was right there with her. And it was a pleasure to meet them both, and to make sure that as the years went by, I stayed in touch, paid respects, and also eventually started trying to download those stories. And others, of course, were too. And then as the years really started to go by, making sure that just our fandom knew who they were. And then as it seemed to be easier to know who Bijo was, to remember John as well. And I guess the last time we talked was at the Picard Season 3 premiere, the hoo-ha, at Grauman's Chinese. I was say Grauman's, that was the original. Yeah, at the Chinese theater. And I thought, well, how nice that they'd been brought up. Then I found out later on that a fan had gone down and brought the 4 hours, brought them back up for that evening, which was wonderful. And just seeing them over the years. And of course, Bijo's still with us, and I hope she can get out to some things. It may be a case of people need to go to her now, so I don't know how her travel plans are going to be. But I'm just really, really gratified and thrilled that not only just knowing them over the years, but that we started getting them archived for fandom consumption later, because that's the way things work. So yes, R.I.P. John Trimble. And as I said in my Instagram, look, crew, they famously helped get Star Trek to a 3rd season, so that it didn't quite get to 100 episodes, but it got close enough for the syndication package to sell, to become a thing, to revolutionize what happened with local stations and their local ratings, to revolutionize what syndication could be, and much less revolutionize in the mundane world's eyes that sci-fi could be handled well. And if you did it right, you would tickle so many imaginations and fancies, you would have them shut up and giving you my money up and down the line. And that is what helped George Lucas get the last little bit of his funding after the 73, 74, 75 conventions, after Franz Joseph Schnabel's Tech Manual was on the bestseller list, New York Times #1 for 16 weeks. And the news, you could make fun of those Trekkie kids, but they're plunking down bucks. And it wasn't much bucks in the early days, not compared to today. We laugh at those prices. But the point was, it was moving the counter. And you couldn't argue with the local station. Between those 3 things, my theory is the purse strings opened up enough, and George Lucas realized maybe it's the time to make this. And not only did he want to do it, but somebody else put faith in him to give the money. And he credited the one time he and Gene Roddenberry met on stage at the first official Star Wars convention there, that my friend Dan Madsen helped organize. In the 80s, that George Lucas was able to thank them. So just think about that. I love to talk about dominoes. We don't know the way the butterfly effect is going to go, But if they hadn't decided to take on that mail campaign and we never had Star Trek, the media revolution of sci-fi might not have happened, and including the dominoes that fell from Star Trek. Maybe something else eventually, those urges would have found their way to a screen. It feels likely they would have, but certainly the domino effect that we have today. And Star Wars conventions wouldn't have been a thing that led to the Comic-Con style. Who knows? Who knows? And the history of Hollywood films and TV with the Marvel DC superhero world that ignited this, much less the sci-fi. Who knows? But I'm just going to say that don't just chalk up John's influence there to, and of course the SCA we know in that world, the medieval, the fantasy world, the medieval recreationist world led to the fantasy adjacent, and they were all, most of them were big Tolkien fans, and we had the fantasy revolution. So yes, that's why I take a moment to stop and pay homage to John Trimble. And Bijo's still with us, and I look forward to hopefully, having her around to enjoy her and her stories and her input for a good time to come. And I know Laura, looking out for the family, is doing the same. Now, one thing we didn't know last week, and I want to make sure and put this up, is that since now Laura has announced, if you want to do a memorial gift in John's name, they have listed 3 memorial contribution places. One is Via Esperanza, which helps with intellectually and emotionally developmentally kids. That's one. One is the AIDS Healthcare Foundation, or donate to your local AIDS office. And yes, that is still a thing. You'd better believe it. And number 3, donate to your local no-kill shelter, animal shelter. Those are the family's wishes. Also said that donating blood or platelets in his name would work. I'm just getting off their Facebook page. Laura has been posting at their John and Bijo Trimble page. You can get that too. All the links are there. So that's good to hear. That's a celebration of life. No word yet on any kind of public celebration, although I'm sure across fandom over the next year, such as at Star Trek Vegas, other places, there'll be moments to remember John by. All right? Yes, I promised you not a filler episode. I'm going to say this real quickly. This whole thing about filler episodes blew up this week. Maybe I should have saved this for a separate topic. But I could very easily, quickly see it wasn't like a killer debate, but it sure got people interested to talking. Some of it was, since it came from an interview with Alex, some of the just anti-Kurtzman people weighed in to blow it up. But I could tell there was a lot of sincere confusion or maybe misinformation about. And he used the word. That's what kicked this off. But I can see fans taking that word to mean different things. Now, I think what Alex meant was he was talking and trying to justify the worth in a very tight 10, 15, 13, 12, and 10 episode season of a serialized arc. There is room for that. A lot of us miss the other. There's also the idea that what was ginned up in 2017 may have evolved in Star Trek. Serialized storytelling has been around for a long time, but not through the Star Trek filter, not through an established franchise genre IP. I think that was the double-edged sword. That was the hurdle. And I think as the years have gone by and we've seen the other series tackle that, especially Picard. Now we'll see what happens with Starfleet Academy. We'll see if Section 31 gets picked up beyond its movie. Michelle Yolis. But I think the quality, the feel for how to do that has evolved big time. Just even over Discovery. This season, there's nuance there and standaloneness that you'd never get, with one exception in the first season, Discovery. Of course, Discovery was a train wreck because of its labored birth, and it was just dealing with what it had to deal with, not so much the last 2 or 3 seasons. And critiques Discovery all you want, and people always will, but you can tell that the writing has evolved since then. That's what he meant by filler. He meant not having a standalone amidst, not having a bada bing, bada bang amidst your Dominion War. Is basically what we're saying here. But a lot of people took it to mean filler as in crappy episodes because you were trying to crank out 26 in a year. And I mentioned the writers themselves, the TNG folks. Look, read the companion. Aquiel became one of those. There's just episodes that they have high hopes. They don't. Nobody intentionally makes a bad movie or sets out to make a bad episode. But sometimes the factors are against you, especially when you're talking about episodes in a season, especially when you're talking about an old school normal season. And sometimes I used to call them the clinkers, but just the ones that just got spit out. Time ran out on the writing process. It was exhaustion. Nobody got a seventh inning stretch. And you see that. Masks is another one. Maybe a great idea, another Joe Manowski idea that just could not get contained in a 60, 70 page script. So those are what I always call clinkers, but I think some people were calling them fillers. They were taking some of Alex's cues there, saying if you had a long, full season, you're bound to have some that aren't as satisfactory. I think that's where some people, and I think some people even went to calling a filler show a bottle show. Bottle shows were just meant to not have a lot of guest stars and or sets to build, much less visual effects in the old days. And those are in other words, stick with your costs that are already amortized. Use your regular cast, use your regular sets and your stock footage if you can. Do as much as you could without spending more and just have a cheap episode. I'm not saying a clip show, just a cheaper. I mean, famously, some of the bottle shows have been the moments where some of the best character work has happened. People love to cite the Drumhead on TNG as a wonderful bottle show. And that's true. And people were criticizing Alex for there's nothing wrong with what they meant to say a bottle show. A filler show is to go back to the basics, take a breather, and have character work. Much less have on the X-Files, they would have been called the non-mythos shows. Have one that doesn't fit into the arc. And those are fine too, because that's where we get character. All of it's true as long as it's a decent episode, decently written, and not a clinker. But by and large, a lot of the discussion, and maybe debate at times, but the discussion, I just thought suffered from people all coming in with their own definition. They all decided what a filler show must be. And I feel like they were talking about at least 3 different ones. Now, that didn't stop the conversation from foaming up, and that's fine. That's great. And it stayed civil in most quarters. Some of the old school just hate vitriol and broad brush, and let's just jump to the most extreme adjectives we can. There's no moderation. There's no room for, this is my opinion, what's yours? The people that just lay down the law because they don't have time to use another couple of mitigating adjectives and nouns of address. And, that's what it is. That's what it is. But that was just a point I wanted to say. I didn't do a special about this. Maybe we'll cut this and make it a special on its own. But I just want to say, everybody have your opinions. But I just think we were all on scattered. Nobody was in the same terms. Define your terms before you can have a discussion. I just think that was. I just wanted to say that, get that out there, even if it is sharing space with our remembrance of John Trimble today. It was another aspect of last week, post Tuesday. In fact, I think it dropped the very next day, that I just wanted to be on the record about. All right. And before we hit the chat, it's time for, yes, an unboxing. Yep. Now, what's cool is this is my mailer. It's the way I get mine. So we've got the mailing lists all changed over to the address. So let's just get into it, okay? I didn't pre-start this, so now watch this. This is over here. All right. It's an unboxing. The newest. Is it a book? Is it a DVD? Is it a uniform in a box? No. Ah, there we go. Yes. It's the DVD, Blu-ray, even Steelbook editions of season 4 of Lower Decks. And I know we're all at a bittersweet time here. We're all in bittersweet days because of the cancellation of Lower Decks after 5 seasons, at least for now. In its current form, apparently, in the status quo. Oh, look, it's a review copy and one for a future giveaway. So everybody stay tuned. Here in the next months, when we get settled again, there'll be something, whether it's open house for Portal 47, it's a big event at one of the summer cons, something's going to happen. And I prefer to be online because we have a bigger audience to be able to win rather than even a live audience at, say, Trek Vegas. But it's season 4. And yes, I know I got mine a little late because of the address change. But a lot of folks, the reviews are out there. The cool things, of course, there are bonus features, right? Yes. Yep. There's Lower Dictionary setting up season 4, where Mike McMahon, is talking about the first episode of 4, the Voyager episode, right? Pulling in just a lot of the actors, the main cast, talking about some of the surprises and the promotion spoilers at the beginning of this season, right? And Mike even talking about the Tuvix thing. Then old friends talking about the rebirth of T'Lyn from Wej-Douj. Just this, if there was ever a season to have background features since Lower Decks really evolved and stepped up in season 4, this is a great year to have it. And having Shannon Phil and Will as Wesley back for the Academy show, right? The Lower Decks crowd. That was a good one. There's video there. Something borrowed. Just getting into the Orions and the Ferengis. Both of those episodes, the wheel building. They've got Robbie talking about old friends, new planets, right? So it's really good. The tech is all there. It's really good. And right now, though, we've got the emotion. We have the emotions of the cancellation or the final voyage being season 5, the way they can do things now. People are seeing the uncertainty of streaming media. I used to worry about the EMP pulse, wiping out everything and just wanting your home media. But now you don't even know where things are going to wind up. You don't know the future of your shows. If you want it in your hand, you want to be able to control it yourself. We've all come to realize the last year or two that there's still nothing like hard media. You know what I'm saying? So another great reason to go out and pre-order this. And then on top of all that, if you needed no other excuse, just as with Prodigy, buying the media shows powers that be at Paramount Plus, the bean counters, and beyond Paramount Plus. Could Lower Decks, as was vaguely hinted at, is this the end of the regulars? Well, Alex and Mike didn't seem to think so in their publicly published statement, as we've talked about. So, yeah. Buying one of these shows your support for the show. I hate to be so mercenary about it in commercial, but that's kind of the way the world works. And if you really are just in there, if you can scrape up some pennies, look at the specials, but get one to add to the meter to keep it running, because Mike and Alex are looking to bring this back somewhere, whether it's as a movie that's still connected to Paramount Plus, whether it is on another channel, somehow, some way, some form. And I don't think we're even talking about more live action crossovers with Strange New Worlds or anywhere else. I think we're talking about the originals. There's something in mind. Nothing is for certain. There is no done deal yet. There's a lot of fighting and campaigning and negotiating still to go. But it does not hurt if the sales for this disc, and even the older ones, show a healthy spike. Because on its own, it's another awesome home edition of a year when there was so much to talk about. The show grew so much, the characters, the format, the earnestness. And I think, I want to say, if fandom's respect for Lower Decks could grow any more than it already had, it did take a huge leap. And I know, I hear from them. They're still fans. that don't like sitcom Star Trek. They still don't like it animated. I think it's more about the tone than it is the drawing, because the artwork, as we all know, is insanely good and insanely canonical. Just saying that I think a lot of the people that have criticisms have still not watched it since first season or even the first few shows. And that said, a lot of the rest of us know better. And I think the legacy of Lower Decks is only going to grow as the years go by. So it's out there. Go grab your copy. And I'm going to be thrilled. I'm going to be thrilled to have one to give away in the next few weeks or so. All right. Okay, that's going to do it. Wow. Bing, bang, bong. Bingo, bango, bongo. Hey, everybody. Hang on. We're going to get to the chat in just a microsecond. But I would be remiss if I didn't, thank all of our Patreon folk, our TTL clubbers, as I call them. Diana Hopkins, Robin Wilson, Lawrence Todd, Joshua Patton, Justin Portales. I've got the portal on my mind. Justin Porteous, Glenda Bruton, Chris Jiggins, Pranakasha Productions, Comedy Forecast, and Andrew Zazemski. And our live wires, Robert McLean, Byron Bailey, G.R. Poole, Habir Gunjansson, Alan Hoenzi, Dave Gregory, Tobias Rex, Donna S. Runyon, Greg Wickstrom, and Kay Zushevsky. Thank you so much, one and all. The divider there is, and it's just so simple. The divider is a $5 and a $10 Patreon level. I kept it simple on purpose. So would you share the program if you think you know a background or Star Trek person who enjoys some sanity, clarity, and a bigger picture, the way that we do it in Trekland? I like to think it's kind of unique here. We have so many great pundits and commentators and authorities in Star Trek who overlap, but I'd still like to say that no one quite goes to some of the places I do and has a perspective that Dr. Trek does. So I appreciate sharing, and I appreciate everybody else who supports it. I even think the YouTube channel's picking up some folks lately, between Second Opinion and the replays of this show. Some spirited discussion in there, and some old school fans coming over to knock me because I dared say the D word. Still, but there we go. $5 and $10, patreon.com/Trekland Live. I really appreciate it. It's the getting close to the end of the month, so it's jumping in if you'd like to jump in with us. It's a shout out every week. I keep it simple. The live wires, the $10 level, get access to some early generation behind the scenes creatives interviews from the first years of Portal 47. And I do appreciate that a ton. Hey, this is, did I skip it? I skipped it. My Trek Files here. This is Tuesday, normally a day for a new Trek Files. Guess what? We just went on hiatus, which means if you didn't catch the season finale last week, you missed a great one. We're closing out our anniversary celebration, the 40th anniversary, 50th, for the animated series with none other than one of the writers for the animated series, a guy you know as Walter Koenig, Mr. Chekhov himself. Yeah, Bester on Babylon 5. It was great to have Walter on the Trek Files talking about his pitch for the 50-foot Spock. Yeah, that was his idea. You want to hear the whole thing. It's our finale. And you know what? While you're there, they're only 15, 20 minutes. You can back catalog 11 seasons. 11 times 24. Quick. Figure it in your years. Would love to have you check that out. And we'll be back in 4, 5, 6 weeks with season 12. So stay tuned for that word. All right. Meanwhile, it's portal47.net. That's where you can get your backstage mini con all year long, every month. I'm so glad to have the Portales. Tomorrow night, our guest is Michael Westmore Jr. for makeup, special effects, electronics, and also just editing. Yeah, Michael Jr. still leans into his makeup effects, board blinkies, data blinkies, those pioneering days. But he was an editor too, trained as an editor, and worked on the last few seasons of the Star Treks. That's portal47.net, but you can follow me on X, still Twitter X, Larry Nemechek. Please, if you haven't already and you're watching us on YouTube, like and subscribe on YouTube, share it, ring the bell, do all the things so you don't miss one. Instagram yourself also. And sure, Facebook, why not? It's still there. Love it if you could all jump over and spread the word on YouTube, because that's where the numbers are. The important numbers are. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to take a real quick break. We will jump into the chat. I'd love to see what I have stirred up here. But before I go, if you're with us later and you're leaving, please, there's little rumbles out there about, just make sure you've had all your shots. Don't waste it all on your cat and your dog and your other pets. Take care of yourself too, would you? Do all the things. Stay healthy, and stay woke. Check the sources is what I mean, right? Weed out the disinfo or the misinfo. There's a lot of it out there. A lot of it's going to get thicker. And if you realize something shocking about history, check the sources. It might be disinfo, but it might be the stuff no one ever told you. There's so much history that has not been shared with us because it was meant to keep someone or some group down. And I mean that up and down the board. That's all what I mean when I say stay woke. Don't go to sleep on history. I guess I'm still saying, as always, trek well. Okay. Every once in a while, I realize if something ever happens with the rating systems, we might go back to checking ratings. Whether it's the good old Parrot Analytics or anybody else's. If Nielsen's digitals ever get reliable enough, beyond somebody trumpeting them when they happen to go their way as a headline, I'd love to get back to checking the ratings every month. But if you ever wondered what happened to that, that's why. They just became too hard. They started parsing them out. They weren't free. They were outdated by the time they were free. So we will live without it. It was great for the first few years of TTL here to check in with those. But that's why I'm going to say, going right to the chat. Good to see everybody. Hey, Analysis, it's good to have you with us here today still. Oh, everybody. Comedy and Dave and Justin. Thanks for tallying. Carl. Hey, I'm intending to be at Comic-Con San Diego and Trek Vegas. I will not be at SoonerCon this year. I'm not going to be at Phoenix or I don't think Salt Lake. Sorry, Carl. Partly because of the attention from moving has kind of wiped me out on getting in. Part of it is we are making a big push to finally get on with the plan for wrapping up and presenting and sharing the Con of Wrath. It just seemed like a good year to take a break from some of the busyness and focus on things that hadn't been. But next year, boy, I'm so looking forward to being on the cruise and looking forward to, when Con of Wrath is done, to taking that out to the world, and we'll see where that gets us. But that's kind of things in a nutshell. It's going to be a quiet year for cons, especially below the big two. All right. Let me see here. Hi, Neelix. Thank you for that mention. 2,200 subs on YouTube, steadily growing. I know. What? I'll take, I have my think tank, Scott and Kyle, and we've come a long way over the baby channel I had that I wasn't really actively thinking about. And when there's a downtime on Trek, there's a downtime, on video. This little enterprise keeps things rolling, but there weren't second opinions. I need Cadet Alice to get posting. I have some to post, which is a shame. But that's why I say, everybody share the channel. If you would, please like and subscribe and do all the things. But thank you, Neelix, 2,200 subs. If anybody has a suggestion, and not one of these, not the cheap scam artist type, not that any of you all are, but if you can share around whatever you can to pull in Star Trek fans that they still come in. I read their comments. They're like, I just found your channel. It's amazing. Well, maybe not like that, but they're happy to find us. All of that vast armchair fandom that I talk about, not the onliners necessarily, not the con goers, but the vast army of armchair Star Trek fans that are out there who quietly just enjoy the thing and enjoy the conversation, discussion, and new points they might not have thought about, or dots that are so old they didn't know about them to connect them. There we go. Absolutely, Carl. John and Bijo are wonderful people. Besides meeting, they would often stop by for backyard barbecues. Had a chance to chat with them at one of those barbecues in Utah. Hi, Sean. So this is Happy Harriman. Is that some code for across the pond code for trivia night, pub quiz, or something? Here we go. I know this. I thought you asked this already once, but there we go. Was there an announcement or something? 2200. So we had a spurt last year, but then it tailed off again with the hiatus on Trek. Hey, Scott. Whoops. What? Come here. Boom. Hi, Scott. Glad to see you today. And Litterbus and Kyle. Ooh, I've got the dynamic duo both here today. Hey, Analysis. You know, people have talked about, I know of at least 2 attempts to write biographies of Gene, one of which approached Rod and the family estate about, endorsing. When nothing has come yet, but it wouldn't be the first time in an overlap situation. It's such a rich story to talk about, and the facts and the characters are something, but just to revisit, it would be like the Mad Men of, just to enjoy that time period and then evolve it, or maybe pick it up in the 70s, 60s and 70s. Yeah. Just amazing. Hey, Comedy. You got to meet John in 2019? Having a con coffee clatch? So small group, long chat. There you go. There you go. You were part of the 67, 68 mail campaign? Wow. Wow. Hi, Rose. Welcome to our top chat. Top chat. Good to see you. Hey, Rocky O. Thank you. And I appreciate your comments on the YouTube channel later on, Rocky O. Yeah. John would try to downplay that, but he was there. He was there. Oh, good. He has a detailed SCA obituary. Very good. Very good. Yes. Yes, Dr. Dave. You got to have them in 2017. See, you guys had the right idea. Why start the party late? So you were like 15, 16, and 17, right? Just go a year either way. Yes. Yeah, that's one of my regrets. How was I so stupid? There was so much going on when we first moved here in LA with Trek. 2 seasons, a movie and 2 series, and things were just exploding, and in Europe and the experience and all of it. It was so much happening. It was just, I just never got over there, and I so regret it. SCA, you've heard of live action role players. Well, here's the thing. The SCA wasn't live action role play the way you think of LARPers, with the SCA was, you had your persona, but you did research. Fighters. It wasn't role play fighting. There were the rules of combat, and you had modified weapons, and all of my friends became SCA adjacent, and it was just, I was like the one person in my, now we would say my geek family, my nerd family, my circle. I was the one that was like, oh God, I had to learn. I had to learn Middle Earth. I had to learn SCA. I had to learn. I didn't understand the romance of living in a cave or a castle people died when they were 30, if they were lucky, and not get killed in combat at 21 or some horrible disease. I just don't understand the appeal of fantasy. I don't understand the appeal of Middle Ages. Magic can be kind of cool, but all the rest of it, just give me Samantha. But everybody else I knew was. So yes. But the thing about SCA was the guys would all go to fighter practice once a week, and put on the helm, not helmet, but a helm, and your boffer sword to practice with. and the points and the system and all that. And the women generally were the ones doing the fabric and the dye and the blah, blah, blah. You were supposed to, in your heraldry and your crest, and you researched your character and all of that, and you had to be approved and da 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 da. And then the whole political thing of the kingdoms and the shires, then the kingdoms and the annual, the whole rigmarole was awesome. And if you loved it, that was great. But I had better things to do to go out to, what were they called on the weekends? They'd find some farmer with a field and he would let them go out there and set up and do everything and put up the tents and the whole thing. Today in LA, when you see tents going up, you think something totally different than back in the day. And yes, I remember something from Onsteora, Namron. Norman's Shire was Namron, I think. Was it Namron? The kingdom, the shires, having things at Slaughterville out of the farmer's field. I just didn't see the appeal of sitting in a tent sweating in the middle of August. I didn't get that appeal. But, everybody who did, it's awesome. I don't know if the SCA is still as culturally, fandom-wise, as big a thing as it was in the 70s, 80s. I just never forget the first person, a professor's daughter at my college, got me on the phone, and she kept talking about society this and society that, and it took me a long time to figure out she wasn't talking about society in general. Well, society is just a way of life, and capital S, society, as in SCA. Don't hear much about the old SCA these days in mainstream circles, and it's not much of a presence at cons. Oh boy, the way it used to be. Yeah. But it's not just role-playing. You have a persona that you do all the time. There's no organized quest or campaign. Yeah, Carl. Bijo always tried to throw it to John. Housewife Saved Star Trek was a catchy headline. Right. Yes, this is true. Excuse me, John and Bijo started the art show for Worldcon. No, Worldcon in general. Yes. Oh, what a day to be talking about the SCA. Today is Joyous National Talk Like Shakespeare Day. Well, prithee, desire everyone as well. Thank you, Sentai Ranger Donnie, FKA Don. There we go. Robert McNeil, the McNeil-Lehrer Report, and Sir Andrew Davis. You'd have to fill me in on that. Is that a over-the-pond persona? Oh, and thank you for following up. Oh, I did hear this. The conductor laureate of the BBC Symphony Orchestra and the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. Thank you, Christoph, for running that for everybody. Very good. And there you go. There's an education in everybody learning what the SCA is. Hello, Timothy. Good to see you, sir. Okay, Dan, thank you for this. It's very indirect, but yeah, Eddie Murphy. Thank good. You hate to second guess history because you don't know how those butterfly effects would have rolled out, like I was mentioning before. Oh, well, now I have to go see. I have to check this out and see what it is. Well, I can't copy from a thing in chat. So everybody else will see this but me. I did, however, in my Instagram run years ago, someone gave me a batch of 70s convention photos for Joni Winston's RIP story, I think in Communicator. And I have a picture of Joni Winston, Jacqueline Lichtenberg, and John and Bijo at a con at Toronto Trek in 76, which was the first Canadian con, Trek Con. But it's John and Bijo in the mid 70s. And Did we droop a little on the camera there? There you go. The Making of Star Trek Conventions, which was Joni Winston, but also Bijo wrote her own book on the good ship Enterprise. Yes, Bijo's book on the good ship Enterprise. And you'll get a lot of insight about Bijo and John's early work. But yes, good wishes there. A question since before your sunburned hot in space analysis. Is it true that Star Trek influenced what's commonly known as anime cosplay because some Japanese fans went to an early Star Trek convention in the 70s? I don't know about that. I do know that anime came back. We get the word cosplay from anime fandom because cosplay became a thing in the early aughts when Comic-Con started to explode and multi-genre. You had anime cons I knew anime cons since the early, I don't know when, what is the anime con in Dallas? But we used to have to compete with their weekend and jump around it for ThunderCon in the 90s. So I know that anime cons, Jap Animation, has been around since then. But Comic Cons were old guys thumbing through boxes of comics, and you'd have artists come in, and that was a Comic Con, and they loved it. The Hollywood angle, where you brought in the glam and the big budgets and the numbers, wasn't a thing. I've been seeing people peg it to Twilight. Started to grow with Iron Man and the start of the MCU, but Twilight was really what exploded it, which is hysterical because that would be what brought him. But in those early aughts growing days, seeing the anime convention overlap influence, and that's where I first started hearing the word cosplay. And I thought cosplay meant you were costumed and role-playing. Like you were role-playing your character that you were dressed as all day long. Like that was the thing. That's what made it different than just wearing a costume. Because we'd all been wearing a costume since first fandom days in the 30s. And especially with the Star Trek and the media boom, the 70s and 80s and 90s, people had been going in costume and being in the costume contest, aka the masquerade contest, as long. It's great to see the Worldcon, the Worldcon, I guess, pictures from 67 and 68, where there's like 9 different Spocks, the early smash impact of Star Trek, and all the people of both genders going as Spock. So I don't know about this specifically, but I know that then there was a return impact when anime came over, and and I'm just going to generalize here, broad brush, all the anime young girls, young women came over to Comic-Cons, and a lot of the old school sci-fi people said, "Oh, look at all these geek girls now in fandom." And I was like, I'm sorry, did you look at Star Trek fandom in the 70s and 80s? Women have always been part of fandom, but there was a clash of the franchise genres there, unawares. But the term cosplay came back around in wide use. I know that anyway. People dressed up in Starfleet uniforms thinking they could do it for anime. No, I get it. That'd be something interesting to research. And if there's people talking about that from that world, then that's who I would go to and see. You've known films that were made bad on purpose. That's true. That's true. What I should have said was no one sets out to make a bad film on purpose if that wasn't the goal. Is that okay? Is that good? 504 is basically a bottle show, but it is no filler episode. Absolutely. Yeah, the clinkers is what you're talking about. The bottle shows and the clinkers leave room for that. Yes. Oh, very good. Thank you for sharing, Christoph. The Trimbles, the celebration and donation proposal. Very good. There's one. There's a Facebook that's John and Bijo and John Trimble. I would look at that. In fact, maybe I can do it. Huh, I have it twice. Scintillating video, gang, while I do this. That's interesting. Did I not get? Yeah. Maybe you need to share that, Christoph. Oh, okay. Very good. Yes, Duet. Great bottle episode on DS9. They had gone over budget on the pilot. That's why Move Along Home is so infamous, because there was an actual story built that was chopped. They cut the sets, cut the scenes, and did what they could with what they had left. Anna Moraine. No, Timothy, sometimes they just get told we have to write a cheap episode. Figure it out. Sometimes story ideas come in, and the caveat that gets them bought, whether it's in-house writers or it's pitchers, and I'm talking old days, because now everybody gets to write it on staff, writes an episode. There's very little in-house coming in unless one of the assistants who wants to climb the ladder writes. But there's not third-party selling anymore with 10-episode seasons. There's not enough slots. But in the old days, whether you were third-party or you were on staff, if you could say, oh, here, look, the Prophecy, which became Prophecy, our original pitch for Klingons in the Delta Quadrant, and B'Elanna is the central pivotal figure. The whole appeal at first was that it was a bottle show. You can just use Klingon uniforms and ship sets and the model out of the closet. That was part of the appeal of the pitch, aside from the appeal of the concept on Voyager early. And then Michael Piller wanted to blow it up into something big and make a two-parter. And what wound up becoming Basics, he wanted to do something big going out the door as an active hands-on. And it wound up becoming Basics, and that's fine. Had the aliens with their own language subtitled, two-parter. And that's fine. That's fine. He had it in mind to be maybe a season ender. We took it back, and then it became what it was when it finally got revived after 6 years. But sometimes bottle shows are planned to be bottle shows. That's what that is. And part of the bada bing, bada bang was the series was coming down, and they had some floaty ideas they wanted to do, and they knew they just have to wedge them in and make them fit in the Dominion, in the war arcs, right? It's not about continuing. If a writer doesn't know how to continue a complicated story, then they shouldn't be writing. Or they should be on therapy leave. That's why you have a room, is to break any one person's writer's block. Throw the personal questions, sir. Yes. Hey, Tony. Yes. Lower Deck. Did everybody start chanting? Thank you, Rocky. Yes, I saw Star Trek Middle Decks. There's going to be a Lower Deck spinoff. You're going to bet money on. Well, yeah, define spinoff. Does that mean movies? Does that mean move to another streamer? I don't know. Why not? Well, Scott, I know it's been kind of a downtime. Just take us all to a darker place already. Why don't you? We'll see. Let's see what's going to happen. Okay. Wait, Justin, are you saying, did you win something from me and not get it? Is that what you're saying here? Let me know on the side, and we will fix that. I thought I finally got them all caught up, but if I owe you one, we will get it to you, okay? That's what you mean. Okay, we've got some. Let's see. Let's do all we can not to give in right now. Okay, let's not all just give up and give in. Let's see what's going to happen. Exactly, Christian. Physical media all the way. Yeah, I'm not gonna further the spoilers from France. I really wish you hadn't done that, Dan, in a public forum like this. Hi, aggressively, or may I call you aggress? Excuse me. No, I'm not a big comics follower, but that's awesome if she's in there. What style was it drawn in? Captain Carol Freeman. Yeah, I was a little worried about her first season. I was worried about her being a little neurotic there, but she's nailed it down since there. Oh, Christoph, thanks for this update. Lower decks, lower decks, lower decks. Season 4, LD, LD, LD. What's a whole different definition for LD? Thank goodness. Oh, good. You're going to read the Warped book. Very good. Mike McMahon's season 8 TNG book. Yeah. And of course, I've got the chat and that time looped. So I'm sorry we couldn't do that. Yeah, Dan, saying spoiler in the middle of a sentence in a big paragraph is not a spoiler. Spoiler needs to be that, but spoiler in chat, just not a good idea. Too many people are scrolling and they don't. Yeah, that's just not a good idea to spoil unless you've got unless the show is dedicated to spoiling things and it's a competition, then just not heavy duty spoilers like that. Okay. Yeah. Oh, well, you're welcome, analysis. Yeah, there's that. What's that line? He who forgets, and it gets, I'm mangling it, but the gist of it is he who forgets history is doomed to repeat it. Pretty simple concept. And I thought after, I don't know, World War II, we wouldn't have to revisit this, but apparently every generation passes, like nothing is immune. The worst of grievances, the worst traumas in joint world history eventually fade for the morons that don't have a clue and don't get repercussions, don't get the impacts of what's happening. Hello, Donna. Donna Marchese, are you new to us here on Tuesdays Live? Either way, great. If you are, I'm so glad you're jumping in. And sound off. Kyle, you've left me here. Finger red number 1, text yellow goal. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? I say this, Rocky. Thank you for crossing my palm with silver here on the super chat. Like a kid in a candy store, Star Trek Subspace Rhapsody soundtrack on vinyl is now available pre-order and releasing in June. Okay, well, that wasn't much of a question, but I appreciate the effort. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And I appreciate you showing up after the fact on the YouTube comment tracks and being there. What is this? You're fine after hearing that former Star Trek toy licensee Playmates becoming that for the Power Rangers in a deal with Hasbro. Oh, well. Okay, I'm going to skip over any talk about the spoilery thing, okay? All right. Okay, there you go, Christoph. See, I don't know if they have an international. I don't think they did in the 80s, and that's the last time I paid attention. 40 years. They may have since spread worldwide, or the rest of the world may go, been there, done that. This is not appealing. Go have fun, young little America, with your little fantasy role play. And oh, Scott, there you go. Okay, I guess I'm just educating everybody up and down today. Chris Gavin, hello, Chris. Is this your first time with us on Tuesday Live? Appreciate it. If not, that's great. That's fine. Let's see. Okay, we'll deal with this other situation going by here later. Hey, Stephen. In your opinion, is it fair to say that the Trimbles were the last two essential pieces we need at the foundation of the franchise to ensure it would grow? What do you mean by the last two? You mean in the pool that included the professionals, that included Gene and Majel and Gene and Bob Justman and Dorothy and Gene Kuhn? It feels like sorry. Sorry, I just went to the Bahamas for a second. What famous comedian started off his career with that line for a moment? Yes. Yes. I would add one more to that on a different plane. I would, outside the professional Desilu circle, I would add maybe 3 non-studio people, 4. John and Bijo on this end. I would say Franz Joseph, that was 5 years later, who blew up the tech world and showed what nonfiction Trek could look like. And then, of course, Bijo wrote the concordance. And then I would also say Dick Block, who took the lead in selling Star Trek to syndicated stations. But I would say John and Bijo first, because they got it to a 3rd season to get it to where it could syndicate. And then Dick Block, and then Franz Joseph, who blew it up as a sidebar piece, as a piece adjacent. Okay. Well, Diane, I'm glad you made it. We're running a little later today, so there we go. Hi, Athena. I think you've been with us before on Tuesdays, but there you go. To reminding and have yet to truly absorb and acknowledge it. And what are we talking about the it at this point? How likely was the pickup for season 2? The pickup was more certain than it was for season 3. Season 3 was like a not happening thing, pretty much. But 1 was a little more sure. It wasn't as manic, and I think they'd invested so much in the show that they want to amortize it a little bit. And remember, at the end of season 1, Paramount hadn't bought Desilu yet, so there was all that Paramount angst. See, part of this thing about season 2 to 3 was Paramount had bought it, and it was an inherited show, and Star Trek Mission was as expensive to make as Star Trek was, but Mission got better ratings, and it felt more mainstreamy. And of course, it went for years. And Star Trek was a harder sell to a mainstream audience, and a lot of stations still weren't carrying it, or they were delaying it. And the Paramount bean counters just thought it just was an idiot thing. And Gene was abrasive and made no friends. which is why, and his 101st birthday is coming up in a couple of weeks. Why Ralph Sinensi got summarily fired from Tholian Web when it wasn't his fault, and he had a plan to make up the time anyway for being a day behind. It was all about the costumes that weren't his fault, and the costumes should have been, the spacesuits should have been scheduled at the end of the shoot, so they had more time to work on them. Whole long story. You can research that in the Trek Files as well as your other sources. But part of the difference between the season 1 pickup to 2 and the 1 to 2 and the 2 to 3 was Desilu was still on its own, and Paramount had bought the studio by 2 and was putting the screws to things and was just giving it up as a crazy show run by a madman who was not playing nice, who was a mean guy. So I'm going to say the chances were better for the season 2, but it didn't hurt to have the little campaign that they did. Oh, okay, thanks. Because I went to the Trimbles and it was a totally different guy. So yes, it's on up at their Facebook page. Yes. Thank you, Rose. The pink full moon. There we go. Hey, Athena, did I hit a happy button here with you? Geek women always been around. A lot of people need reminding and have yet to truly absorb and acknowledge it. I originally typed this into your YouTube live chat, then realized most of the discussion was elsewhere. Oh, okay. Well, that's weird. Your YouTube live chat should have popped up here too. Not sure what was going on there, but thank you. Thank you for taking the time to post that and to being in with us. Yes. Fragrance-free Vaseline. I know you've been with us before. And on Twitch. Twitchers live. Oh, it's St. George's Day. Okay. There you go. Hey, Tim, once again, coming up to us from Kiwi Land. Yes. Glad to see you. Glad to see you. I don't think Narda's with us, so you're holding down the Islanders. What is it? Oceania-ish. Or Australia adjacent. Is New Zealand included in the grouping with Australia as a continent, or is it just Australia, the island, and you guys get included as Oceania or whatever? Yes, that's been announced. The vinyl is coming from Subspace Rhapsody Rocks. Before I go, any new Star Trek Legacy TV show, not 2000s computer game? No. I don't think it's been greenlit, and is not likely to for at least a year or two, till the new series happen and the dust settle on who the hell is running Paramount and what the hell will be the future of Paramount Plus. Yeah. Oh, hi. Not new, just don't comment much. That's totally fine, Donna. Is it Marchese? Is it a hard CH? Because Donna, I don't think is the problem. Well, Chris, I'm glad you found your way here. I'm just curious how you did, but glad to have you here too. Yes. Yeah, that was a weird long stream interruption. Sorry about that. Wait, what? What did I answer here? Stephen, what did I answer? Okay, cool. Michael Childress, hello, another longtime listener, first-time caller. What are my thoughts on the finding of the 3-foot Enterprise? People are very invested in where it should go. Well, I'm thrilled. What's funny is the minute I saw the pictures of it, I was like, well, that's the 3-footer. What else would it be? Who else would have a well-made Enterprise that old in a closet that, you know, it was not a later day from the last 20 years attempt to make an Enterprise model that big. It had the decal scrapped. You could see, yeah. The minute I saw the pictures, I knew that's what it was, and that's what everybody else you watch. That's what Darren said. That's what everybody said. But they wanted to go through the motions, and that's fine. And it makes total sense that, of course, it's been lost because it got. That's the way stuff happens. That's why you find unerased Doctor Who episode tapes from the 70s in a vault in South Africa or something. It was some BBC colony country where somebody happened to put something in and it was climate. I mean, if things had been easy to find, they would have been found by now. So you have no random way to know where that's going to happen. Marchese? Okay. I scrolled down. So I'm thrilled. Now, invested about where it should go. I told John and Rod that I just want it to be at the offices for a week or two so I can go by and see it before it goes out wherever. I don't think it needs to go to the Smithsonian because they've got the 11-footer. Geez. So maybe there's another legit museum out there. Maybe a tour. I don't know. And whatever it goes on display, it would be nice if maybe it went for a loan, like with a time limit, like 5 years, 3 years. I'm not sure. But I'd like to see it myself without a lot of hassle before it goes anywhere else. But thank you, Michael, for finding us and joining us. And let me know how you found your way here. I'm curious. I'm always curious. Oh. Hi, Brad. Okay. Well, how was I supposed to know that from Fragrance v Vaseline? It rang a tiny bell, but no way to know. And I appreciate you doing that for me last year. Hey, Tim, listen, I know you're not part of Australia. I don't mean nationally. I meant when they define the continents. I never thought of it till right now. Is Australia the continent defined as just Australia? That's what I knew. You're separate governments and nationalities and the whole thing. Very much so. And you're included in the Oceania. Thank you for answering my question. Right. New Zealand is a penal colony. Not the whole island. It's a place located. I know. Now, why his name wasn't Tom Wellington? Yeah, that would be funny. Marquise is how it's said. Okay, very good. Where are most of the production crew who work on Star Trek? Oh, Toronto. Yeah. Hey, Chris. See me online quite a bit. You bum around on the 7th rule a lot. Caught you there a few times. Oh, okay. Well, I just guessed it, maybe. But good. Thank you for coming over. Check out everything else at Trekland, too, would you? Please. Portal 47 and, Trek Files and Cadet Alice. Hey, Glenn. Okay. Oh, okay. See, I'm a little slow and a little late to the respected chat pack. Is that one notch up? Oh, good. Well, thank you, YouTube. Since we became whateverized for YouTube. So I'm the last one to meet you, Chris. So my apologies. Did the Science Fiction Museum survive Paul Allen's death and the changeover and all that? Is it still a going thing and not wobbly? That would be a place, certainly. I still like the idea of going on tour, though. Oh, hey. Oh, Michael. And I think I was on Keep on Trekking at least once. So I'm sorry if it's been a while and I forgot, but there we go. Then I'm going to say, you know what? I almost think no. I almost think leave that one be as a relic of its way. Yeah. The Trek Files. Yes, it's my podcast audio from Roddenberry. You can get it at the Trek Files Facebook page. You can get all the Roddenberry podcasts at podcast.roddenberry.com. But the Trek Files has a document every week, and it's only on the Facebook page. Although you can get the podcast in iTunes and Spotify and everywhere, Libsyn, all those places. But the documents are only at Facebook. And there's 11 seasons now. 11 times 24. Figure out what that is. Measure that in your years. And thank you for the closeout here, Christoph. And yes, there we go. End of the chat. Thank you so much. And just one more time, very quickly, gang. It is getting to be summer, springtime. Love to host you for a Trekland Trek. If you can, treklandtreks.com. Or again, at larrynemecek.com. We figure it out. It's your customized away mission to the real locations in all of greater SoCal that are happening. Hey, the Trek Files is on hiatus, but as I was just saying, the 11 seasons are there. It's hard to see at the Facebook page to scroll back, although that's where the documents are and the photos. But if you take anything over to Libsyn and get there, find all your places on your spot, your podcast catching place of choice. That's all a thing. Once again, a shout out to all of our Patreons. Yay, gang. And if you came into us late and you want to help me out here, it's very simple. Patreon, $5, $10, patreon.com/Trekland Live. And the perks are the shout out. And if you're a $10 live wire, you are accessing all of the first 3 or 4 years of Portal 47 backstage interviews with all the Trek creatives that never get any attention. And you learn so much about what's going on. And the socials, once again, at Larry Nemecek on Twitter. It's Larry's Trekland on Facebook and Instagram. And where are we? YouTube. Portal47.net if you want to check out your backstage pass, your backstage minicon all year long. No post-con blues with Portal 47. And tomorrow night, it's guest night for the month, and it's Michael Westmore Jr. is going to be our guest. So once again, everybody, thanks so much for joining us. So many new faces today. That was awesome. And we will see you next week, if not sooner. Second Opinion. Heaven forbid I not mention Second Opinion. New discovery this week, and that means there's a new Second Opinion this weekend, hopefully on Saturday. Check that one out. Starting to have more people pay attention to second opinions. Maybe you don't like my second opinion. Maybe there's something you've never heard anywhere else. I would love for everybody to go over and comment there. They're recorded, so there's no live stream component to it. I would love for everybody to go over and watch one. They're per episode, and see what you think. That's what I think. I'd love to hear what you do. Leave it in the comments if you can, over at Second Opinion on the YouTube channel. All right? Otherwise, as always, stay healthy, do all the things. Stay woke, check the sources, and trek well.